Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, Jerron Harrington, back to hit you with another video. And today, we're going to be doing something a little special. We are continuing Konosuba, Mystic Rangers of Misfortune, Part 2, but I also have to announce that today we are also going to be releasing Part 3 as well. You see, as we get down to the final portions of episodes for the various videos that we have on the channel, aside from one more series that we need to start, I've decided that it's time to kick things into high gear, if you will. So that's why for today's slate of videos, you're going to be getting two, that being parts 2 and 3 of Konosuba Mystic Rangers of Misfortune, based on the heroes of the Morphin Grid series. I'm also going to take to making more content as fast as possible and in a timely manner. So because of this, I am going to be reducing the amount of time that each video has in length. So rather than having 30 to 40, 50 minute videos, I'm trying to scale that back to about 15, 20 minutes tops. Not that I know that you guys don't enjoy longer videos, it's just that getting out content is my main priority, and getting out quality content is my main priority also. So if possible, I would like to try to do maybe 2 videos a day, and the only way I can do that is if I shorten the runtime. Trying to get out 2 40-minute or 50-minute plus videos in a single day, it's a lot to say the least. So I do want to, make that notion and distinguish of those changes that are going to be coming to the channel, and so that you can enjoy the content in a quicker and much more digestible fashion. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to get into today's slate of videos, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. For Kazuma Sato, this was not how he wanted his debut battle to go. He thought that he would get a chance to level up, to train with his powers. But now here he was, fighting against a general of the Devil King Mordecai. Of course, he would have called Wiz in a hurry, but Wiz unfortunately wasn't here right now. She had actually gone out of town on a business trip, and she wouldn't be back for a few days. Which meant that the safety of everyone here, well, it was up to them. Of course, for Verdia, his main gripe was the fact that someone kept launching large explosions at his castle. The only reason why they didn't bother sacking and attacking this town beforehand was because it was a pretty peaceful area. There weren't any heroes, and there was no strategic value to be gained from coming after this place. But still, though, the Headless Knight was not in the forgiving mood. For Kazuma, he wanted to think of a strategy. He wanted to think of a plan. He wanted to try to come up with something. After all, he was a hero now. It was his responsibility. But sadly, before he could get a chance, Aqua would walk up to the Headless Knight. The arrogant but dim-witted goddess, being so confident and full of herself and her powers, demanding that Verdia turn tail and run, otherwise she'd have to unleash her holy power. Well, Verdia wasn't really in the mood for her games, summoning an army of Hidiacs all at once. Aqua's tune quickly changed, the town watching on in rather disappointment as Aqua was being chased all throughout the outskirts of the city by a horde of zombie warriors. Kazuma and the others knew that they had no choice but to fight this out. Taking out the wands they had been given, they would morph and transform into the Mystic Rangers. Kazuma would yell out to Aqua to morph as well, but she couldn't really focus at the moment, mainly because she was too busy running for her life and she was too dim-witted to do anything else. While Kazuma went to go and help Aqua, Megumi would get in position to use one of her explosions against the Horde, while Darkness, taking over using her sword, would go charging straight towards Verdia. Thankfully, giving her the ability over lightning was actually to her benefit. Even if she was a dimwit and couldn't hit a standing tree to save her life, she moved at incredibly high speeds thanks to the lightning boost. So fast that even if she wanted to miss, she couldn't. All she had to do was point herself in the right direction and go. The Yellow Ranger moving with a quickness as she came blade to blade with the Headless Knight. Verdia being shocked by her strength, but even more so by the presence of these Rangers. He had heard about Rangers before, from his master of long ago. But it couldn't be. It couldn't be the same Rangers. No, these ones were idiots. There was no way these were the same Rangers that defeated the previous Devil King all those millennia ago. But still though, as he continued his fight with the Yellow Crusader, more and more he couldn't help but feel a sinking suspicion. Kazuma, using his blade, would summon roots and vines all at once to bind and hold the Hideax in place, giving Aqua enough time to morph as well into the Blue Mystic Ranger. Now that she was ready for battle, he would hold them in place while Aqua would use Return of Dead, in doing so basically exercising most of the Horde all at once, and Megumi would finish the fight, launching a large explosion and destroying the Horde where they stood, until eventually there was none of them left. Verdia turned and saw what was happening, and now, whether he wanted to admit it or not, there was no mistaking it this time. These Rangers were indeed a force to be reckoned with. Now, even if he wanted to, he couldn't turn back. Holding his head in one hand and his sword in the other, Verdia turned as the four Rangers stood together. He warned that they were going to meet their match, and that in credence with his master's wishes, the Rangers would never be allowed to rise again. Kazuma warned that they weren't your average Rangers, and even if they were incompetent, they were still more than enough to take him on. Along with the other adventurers and warriors from the city, everyone would lead the charge against Verdia. Despite being outnumbered, Verdia was still a pretty powerful warrior in his own right, being able to fight and knock all of them back to a certain degree. Kazuma had to come up with a plan, some way to hold him off long enough so that they could finish him with a decisive blow. Kazuma attempted to use his binding spell once again, creating massive tree roots to appear from the ground, attempting to hold Verdia and keep him in place, although they were easily cut down all at once. Aqua would use a blast of water, and to Kazuma's surprise, it was actually effective. Her water was actually a weakness to him, causing him to want to avoid it at all costs. Seeing now that they had their chance, Kazuma would lead Aqua and the other adventurers to all use a water attack. If they could flood the entire area, then they could weaken him enough so that Kazuma could hold him in place. Focusing all of their attacks at once, Aqua would use Flood, causing a massive deluge of water to appear, coating the Headless Knight all at once. Now being weakened and in a much more favorable position, Kazuma would use the vines and the roots once again, binding and keeping him in place so that he could not move. Then next was Darkness' turn. Darkness would go charging straight towards the Headless Knight, stabbing her sword straight to his chest as she used Discharge, giving off a massive release of lightning. This proved to be both a blessing and a curse, as the attack also affected Darkness, and that was her intended purpose in the first place. some twisted form of shock play or BDSM in her mind. Kazuma, for one, was not having any of this, and he summoned an extra vine to pull her out of there immediately. Now, with no one in the vicinity, Megumin was called up next. Kazuma told her not to hold back, to use double the amount of force, although she warned that was going to wipe her out of her quota for the day, as in her morphed form she could launch off 3 explosions, although each explosion cut her power by a third. But, never wanting to miss a gift horse in the mouth, she would indeed launch off an explosion of fire, double the power than before, as a large blast of blinding red would engulf the entire area. Verdia would scream out in agonizing pain as he felt his body being sent asunder. As the smoke cleared and the dust settled, to everyone's surprise, there was hardly anything left. His head, armor, everything had been burnt to a crisp. Now the only thing left was for Aqua to exorcise him and destroy him completely, which she did so, as she hated all of the undead with a great passion. The battle was won. The Rangers had managed to defeat a general of Mordecon, the Devil King. For Kazuma, he couldn't believe it. They had actually won. This is what it must have felt like. What it must have felt like to be a real hero, a true adventurer. With this power, they could accomplish anything. There was nothing that was out of their grasp. The people would celebrate with Kazuma and his party for a victory and a job well done, as they made their way back to the guild for drinks and dinner, as a major feast was in order. Luna, the leader of the guild, would call Kazuma forward with his party to receive their reward for their victory against Verdia. For Kazuma, he felt as though he had finally made it. It was finally time to become a real adventurer. This was what he had been waiting for. Their grand reward and prize would be a total of 300 million Eris. Kazuma jumped up in the air as he danced. He had gone from being broke with no money to 300 million Eris. You know what? Screw being an adventurer. He was ready to retire. He could live off of that comfortably for the rest of his life. Maybe invest it. Do more. Kazuma saw the future, and the future was bright. The future was everything he could have ever dreamed. All of his hopes, all of his plans, sadly went up in smoke, as Luna had to explain that despite all of the good that Kazuma and his party had done, in the process they did destroy half of the city wall. In Kazuma's excitement, he didn't stop to realize just how much damage he had caused in the process. Now granted, they did take out a general of the Devil King, so they couldn't be asked to pay all of the fees, but they would be looked upon to cover a good portion of it. The cost of the damages was 340 million Eris. The guild was going to subtract the 300 million, but that still left 40 million Eris in debt. Kazuma's face of joy, well, it turned to that of sadness and sorrow, as he slowly realized that in the span of a single day, he had gone from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, and now back to the lowest of lows. There wasn't going to be an easy life, easy street. That was far from him. Of course, for Megumin Darkness, they looked forward to continuing their adventures, as they had no intentions on stopping anytime soon. And for Kazuma and Aqua, they knew that their journey their despair, their misfortune was just beginning. In the coming weeks that followed, they had to take on any sort of quest that would come their way. One of which include fighting against winter sprites, snow sprites to be exact. It was cold and not really favorable to anyone in the elements. Everyone was just looking to take the day off and relax. But for Kazuma and his party, they couldn't afford to do that. Sleeping in a barn stable in winter wasn't really much warmth. They needed the money. Any kind of money would do. Besides, they learned that they got 1,000 heirs for every snow sprite they killed. So, Kazuma figured they could make good bank if they could take these little things out. And with their ranger powers, it should be easy. At least, that's what he believed. For Megumi, her explosions proved to be rather useful. Of course, she only had 3 shots, but 3 shots were more than enough, as she took out 12 with the first, 8 with the second, and then another 10 with the third, for a grand total of 100,020 Eris. For darkness, she would let off a discharge of lightning, killing snow sprites, and also giving herself some pleasure. In the process, she earned a nice 30,000 Eris. Aqua chose the more simple approach. She used a fishing net and some jars, and decided to collect them that way and turn them in. For Kazuma, he figured that he could use his plants to his advantage. Although it was in the dead of winter, so a lot of the foliage had died. He was able to pick up some leaves and hold them in his hands. With his expert's marksmanship, and with a buff of luck, he could shoot out the leaves, kind of like sniper shots, and take out sprites that way. Everything was going fairly well for the team. That was until another major obstacle occurred. A large gust of snow would appear out of nowhere, and from amongst the shadows, Aqua could see what was standing before them. She would quickly tell Kazuma and the others to lower their weapons and to bow their heads, Kazuma wondering just what she was so afraid of, until she warned that the being standing before them was the winter shogun, a powerful warrior from the snow. As Kazuma got a closer look, he realized that the warrior took a samurai-like approach. He asked how on earth something like this could even exist in the first place. That was until Aqua would explain that she didn't just send Kazuma here also. A lot of people from Japan were sent here, and over time their thoughts and overall feelings could manifest into various monsters and other things, so thus the Winter Shogun was before them. But Kazuma, he wasn't too worried. They had defeated Verdia for crying out loud. They had no reason to be afraid. Kazuma told everyone to raise their heads. They were the heroes of this world. They were not going to be defeated so easily by a Winter Shogun. As everyone slowly lifted their heads, even under their helmets, all they had was a face of grimace and of fear. Because as Kazuma turned around, everything went dark. The next thing he knew, he found himself back in the afterlife, although now he was in front of a new goddess. Her name was Eris. Of course, Kazuma was confused. How on earth did he get here? Wasn't he just... Oh my god. He couldn't believe what had happened. Somehow, some way, he had died. He got killed like that? Was he really that weak and pathetic? Eris explained that he should be more careful. Even with his powers, that didn't guarantee him victory in every situation. For Kazuma, a strong sense of dread washed over him. Even with his new powers, that didn't guarantee him anything in this world. He wondered if it was even possible to defeat Mordecai at this point. Eris did offer for him to be reincarnated into another world once again, and he had to admit he found the offer rather tempting. Also, Eris was pretty cute. However, before he could take her up on anything, they would be interrupted, as Aqua would use resurrection to bring Kazuma back immediately. And as she could listen to the conversation between he and Eris, Aqua, who viewed her as a rival, started airing out a lot of her secrets. Among many of them were the fact that that chest that Kazuma was so attracted to, those were pads. Of course, Eris, not wanting to have her secrets revealed, would quickly open the gate and allow for Kazuma to return, asking to keep her secret and not reveal the truth. Although for Kazuma, he was okay with pads. Eventually, they found themselves returning back to the world of the living, Kazuma being greeted by his friends. He was happy to see them once more, although for the life of him, he couldn't tell how he died though. They all nervously pointed over to the patch of snow that was stained in blood, and seeing the large pool of it, Kazuma then realized how he met his end. His head came clean off his shoulders. He even saw the imprint of where his helmet was. That was just unfortunate. Although, honestly, there was nothing that he could do now. He was back in the world of the living, and now the only thing left for him was to make the most of the life that he had been given. Of course, they were still in debt, so they had that to worry about, and there was training that needed to be done as they attempted to master their new powers. Although thankfully, Wiz would be there to teach them and show them the ropes every step of the way. She explained that there was a lot that they could do, but they would need to level up in time. But she could help them in another way. There was a mansion that no one was occupying at the moment. They could live there and avoid the harsh winter. All they had to do was expel the evil spirits that were inside, and for Aqua, she viewed that as a grand opportunity to flex her power. Of course, they had to deal with a lot of issues, that being from creepy ghost dolls and the like. And it didn't make matters any better when Aqua revealed that it was actually her actions that led to the mansion being haunted in the first place. So, the side reward that they could have collected from getting rid of all of those ghosts, they couldn't really accept. But at the very least, they had a place to lay their heads, a place where they could train, and a place where they'd be safe from the elements. For Kazuma, this was honestly just a step in the right direction, and he really couldn't care less of what had happened. At least they had a home. Everything seemed to be going fairly well for them. That was until an announcement was launched all throughout the city, calling for all adventurers to come to the guild immediately, as the mobile fortress, otherwise known as the Destroyer, was making its way to the town. This concludes Konosuba, Mystic Rangers of Misfortune, based on the Heroes of the Morphing Grid series, Part 2. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Until next time, I'm Javon Harrington, signing off. Until we meet again. Bye.